Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive. And today we're tackling something that's been causing quite a stir online lately. Haven't you heard? AI content detection.
Yeah, it's a hot topic for sure. A lot of buzz.
Absolutely. And we've got some really great sources to unpack today. We're going to be looking at Kevin Brake's latest research, some really fascinating findings from Andy Stapleton's YouTube experiments.
Oh, yeah. Andy's work is always eye-opening.
It really is. And we're even going to break down a website called undetectable.ai that claims it can make AI writing, get this,
Undetectable.
now that's a bold claim.
Isn't it? This is where it gets
Yeah.
really, really interesting. So buckle up, everyone.
It really is fascinating to see how fast this field is moving. It's like an arms race
Exactly.
between the AI that creates content
Yeah.
and the AI trying to, sniff it out like a detective.
Like a digital detective, right? And Kevin Brake, he's been kind of a leading voice in all of this. He said something that really stuck with me. He said, more in-person evaluations will be needed to make sure people are not just experts because of AI.
That's a good one. What do you make of that?
I think it gets to the heart of a really big question, right? How do we even assess genuine expertise in a world where AI can just, whip up a paper or an article that sounds like it was written by a seasoned professional?
It's scary, isn't it? It's like, what does this mean for education? For professions where credibility is everything.
Yeah.
Even for just, reading something online and trying to figure out what's real and what's not.
Yeah, you read an article and you're like, wait a minute, did a human even write this?
Right. That's the kind of stuff that keeps me up at night.
I hear you. And, Andy Stapleton, he's been doing some really cool experiments on his YouTube channel where he basically tries to bust all the myths about how to fool AI detection tools.
Oh, I saw that. Yeah, so what did he try? Did any of it actually work?
He tried everything. Synonyms, fancy jargon, throwing in some industry-specific terms. He even tried writing in the style of Albert Einstein.
No way, really?
Yeah, it's hilarious, but the detectors saw right through it all. I mean, it's pretty amazing how sophisticated these algorithms are getting.
So even mimicking a genius doesn't work. What about just rewording everything manually, like really painstakingly paraphrasing?
Tried that too. Barely made a dent in the score.
Really? So is there anything that can fool these things?
Well, there was one method that consistently slipped past the detectors, a website called undetectable.ai.
Ooh. Okay, now we're going to have to dive into undetectable.ai a little bit later in this deep dive. But what I find really fascinating is that it's not just about masking AI. It's actually trying to make the writing sound more human.
They call it humanization.
Humanization. Okay, so it's not just about, grammar and syntax. It's about mimicking things like tone and voice, even emotional subtext.
That's right. They're trying to make AI writing indistinguishable from human writing.
Wow, AI is trying to tug at our heartstrings now. This is getting a little too Black Mirror for me.
I know, it's pretty wild, but before we get ahead of ourselves, let's take a closer look at what undetectable.ai actually does, what they claim to offer, how it works, all that good stuff.
Yeah, lead the way. I'm ready to go deeper into this rabbit hole.
All right, well, they claim to offer instant results from multiple AI detection tools. They've got multi-language support, and they even have targeted use cases for different types of content, like if you're a blogger, a student, a professional, you name it.
It's like they've thought of everything.
Yeah.
But isn't this technology basically giving people a free pass to cheat the system? What's to stop students from turning in AI-written essays?
That's a valid concern for sure.
Or what about someone spreading fake news articles that look totally legit? I mean, this brings us back to what Kevin Brake was talking about, right?
Mm-hmm.
If tools like this become commonplace, how do we assess genuine expertise anymore?
You're hitting on some really important points there. It's a double-edged sword, no doubt about it. On one hand, you have the potential for misuse, plagiarism, deception, undermining trust in information sources.
Right.
But on the other hand, there could be legitimate uses too.
Okay, give me an example of a legitimate use case. Help me see the other side of this.
Sure. Imagine someone who's not a native English speaker using AI to help them communicate more clearly, or a small business owner using AI to write product descriptions that are more engaging and persuasive.
So it's not necessarily the technology itself that's good or bad. It's all about how people choose to use it.
Exactly.
It's like any tool, really.
Right. A hammer can build a house or it can, cause harm.
It all comes back to human choices and intentions. But speaking of choices, let's get back to Andy's findings. Because he didn't just test how to fool detectors. He took it a step further. Remember how even his own PhD abstract got flagged as AI generated after he ran it through ChatGPT?
Oh, yeah, that was a classic.
That was wild. I mean, his own work written by a human got flagged as AI. What did you do about that?
Well, he decided to see if these AI bypass services could fix the problem. So he took those rewritten abstracts and ran them through a whole bunch of different services. Some popular ones, some more obscure ones.
Real gauntlet.
Yeah, exactly.
Did they pass the test? Were they able to make his human-written work look human again?
Most of them failed, which is interesting in itself.
Yeah, why do you think that is?
Well, the detectors are still picking up on something, some kind of telltale sign that it's not quite human.
Like a digital fingerprint or something?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. Two services consistently passed. Undetectable.ai and Phrase.io, they were able to fool the detectors into thinking that the AI-generated content was actually human-written.
So it sounds like undetectable.ai is living up to its name. But this whole thing makes you wonder if we'll ever be able to tell the difference between human and AI.
It's a valid concern, and it raises even more questions about the future of writing, authorship, how we determine authenticity. It's a big can of worms.
It really is. It's a good thing Andy's keeping such a close eye on all of this. But I'm dying to know, what did he find when he put undetectable.ai to the test?
Well, let's get into that right now. You might be surprised by what he discovered.
I'm all ears.
Yeah.
So Andy took his rewritten PhD abstract and put it through undetectable.ai. What happened?
Well, it worked. It actually made the AI-generated content look human to the detectors.
Really? So it passed the test?
It did, but there's a twist.
There's always a twist. All right, I'm on the edge of my seat. What is it?
Even though it passed the AI detection tests, Andy noticed some, I don't know how to describe it, just some oddly phrased sentences in the output, kind of like little red flags that a human wouldn't typically write.
So it's like it almost overdid it with the humanizing part.
Yeah, exactly.
Like trying too hard to sound casual and ending up, a little awkward.
Yeah, like it's trying to be too clever.
Yeah, and failing.
And that's actually a good sign in a way.
How so?
Well, it means that there are still some subtle markers that can help us differentiate between human and AI writing, even as these tools get more sophisticated.
I see what you're saying. It's like no matter how good AI gets, there's still something uniquely human about the way we communicate.
Yeah, there's a certain je ne sais quoi.
Ooh.
Had to throw in some French there, but it still feels like we're in this constant game of cat and mouse, right?
No.
As AI gets better at writing, the detectors have to get better at detecting, and then the tools to bypass those detectors get even more advanced. It's a little dizzying when you think about it.
It's exhausting just thinking about it.
It definitely highlights the rapid pace of development in this field, and what's interesting is that these very tools that are designed to catch AI-generated content could also be used to train AI to write even more convincingly in the future.
It's like a feedback loop, a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Right, exactly. The more we try to catch it, the better it gets at hiding.
Okay, so let's talk about the consequences of all of this. Like, what happens if AI content detection becomes so sophisticated, but then the tools to bypass it become equally advanced? What does that even look like?
Well, it really challenges our traditional notions of authorship, originality, trust. How do we know who or what is really behind the words we're reading?
Yeah, how do we assess the validity of information when we can't even be sure if a human was involved in creating it?
Right, it's a huge question mark hanging over everything.
And what do you think this means for fields like journalism or academia,
Yeah.
where credibility is everything?
It's a huge concern. Imagine a world where scientific papers or news articles could be convincingly fabricated by AI, and we wouldn't be able to tell the difference.
It's like it undermines the entire foundation of knowledge and information sharing.
Exactly. And it's not just about institutions either. It impacts all of us as individuals. Like, how do we navigate this new landscape as consumers of information? What do we need to be aware of?
Right, it's like a minefield out there.
That's where critical thinking becomes more crucial than ever. We need to develop a healthy skepticism, question our sources, be aware of the potential biases that can be embedded in both human and AI-generated content.
So it's not just about learning how to spot AI-generated content. It's about developing a more discerning eye for information in general.
Exactly. We can't just passively absorb information anymore. We need to engage with it actively, evaluate it critically, think for ourselves.
I need to level up our critical thinking skills big time.
Absolutely. And this is where I think Kevin Brake's quote about the need for more in-person evaluations becomes really relevant. If we can't rely on written work alone to assess expertise, what other methods can we use?
Yeah, what do you think?
Well, we need to look beyond just the content itself and consider the context, the source, the intent behind the message. Who's creating this information and why? What are their credentials, their track record? Are there any red flags that might suggest bias or manipulation?
That's a great point. It's like we need to become detectives, constantly looking for clues and piecing together the bigger picture.
Exactly. And maybe this is an opportunity to rediscover the value of face-to-face interactions, where we can assess someone's knowledge and expertise through dialogue, critical thinking, that back and forth.
Yeah, there's something about that human connection that you just can't replicate online.
Absolutely. There's no substitute for human connection and the nuanced understanding that comes from real-time interaction. It's in those moments of genuine exchange that we can truly gauge someone's depth of knowledge and authenticity.
So it's not about rejecting technology altogether. It's about finding a balance.
Right.
Using AI as a tool to enhance our understanding and capabilities, but always remembering that technology should serve us, not the other way around.
I couldn't have said it better myself. It's all about finding that sweet spot where human ingenuity and technological advancement work together to create a more informed and enlightened world.
This has been a truly eye-opening conversation. It's clear that we're on the cusp of a major shift in how we create, consume, and evaluate information. But rather than fearing this change, I think we can embrace it as an opportunity to redefine what it means to be knowledgeable and informed in the digital age.
I completely agree. It's a challenge, but it's also an exciting opportunity to reimagine the possibilities of human intelligence and creativity in the age of AI.
And for everyone listening, remember that you're not alone in this journey. We're all figuring this out together, and your voice matters. What are your thoughts on all of this?
We encourage you to leave a comment and share your perspective. Let's keep this conversation going.
And that brings us to the end of another deep dive. Thank you for joining us. It's amazing, isn't it? We started talking about AI content detection, and now we're like philosophizing about the nature of information itself.
It really is a rabbit hole, goes way deeper than you'd think. This technology, it's really blurring the lines between human and artificial intelligence. Makes you rethink what it means to be a writer, a thinker, a creator, especially in this digital age.
Absolutely. And it makes you think about the future of education, too. Like if AI can write essays and pass tests, how do we even teach students to think critically? How do they develop genuine expertise?
Well, that's where the role of educators becomes so important, right? It's not enough to just teach facts anymore. We need to teach students how to really evaluate information, how to spot the fakes, the BS, and how to navigate this world where things are getting, well, blurry.
So maybe it's less about memorizing and more about teaching kids to be curious, to think for themselves, to connect the dots, those skills that are truly human.
That's it. That's the key. And it's not just about students either. All of us, we're lifelong learners, right? We need to keep that same mindset.
Yeah.
Be curious, be a little skeptical, and always be trying to understand the world better.
Makes me think about what Kevin Brake said about needing more in-person evaluations. Like maybe that's part of the solution. More dialogue, more debate, more real-time critical thinking. Maybe that's how we rediscover what real expertise looks like.
I think you're right. We're getting so virtual, it's easy to lose touch with that real-world interaction. But that's where we see the nuances, where we can really understand each other.
It's funny, we started this deep dive exploring tech that blurs the lines, and now we're talking about how important it is to hold onto those human things that can't be replicated.
It's a paradox, for sure. Technology can connect us, but it can also isolate us. It can make us stronger, but it can also expose our weaknesses. It all comes down to how we choose to use it, how we make sure it serves us.
Couldn't have put it better myself. This deep dive has really been mind-blowing, and I feel like we've just scratched the surface. This conversation about AI and information, it's just getting started.
It is, absolutely.
So for everyone listening, if you want to dig deeper, check out Andy Stapleton's YouTube channel, and you could also explore undetectable.ai. It's fascinating stuff, really.
And most importantly, keep asking questions, be curious, and talk about this stuff. The future of information, it's in our hands.
Well said. That's it for today's deep dive, everyone. Thanks for joining us, and until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep.